Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Siluta. Good morning, Elona.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Elona. Good morning, Hanan.
Yeah, so today we're gonna talk about, I would, uh, I'm just waiting a little bit for our audience to join us. Can you leave in the comments where are you from? And we're very excited to share this episode again with you today. So the subject today is the power of forgiveness. We already talked about the power of forgiveness, but today we would love to see it from different perspective. And I believe that we learn more and better when we repeat the same thing over and over and we see it from different perspectives. And today we have a special guest, Elona. She's a forgiveness coach. She's a notary, she's an army veteran, she's a self published author and candidate for Washington state governor. Her goal in life is to unite communities and remove labels, and her hope is to be a voice in public service who advocates for veterans and unheard citizens. She's unstoppable at whatever she puts her mind to do, and she's a motivational speaker also, and she encourages people to be a promotion, not the emotion. What a mission. What a mission, Elona. So tell us a little bit about you and how did you get into this path to inspire and empower others?
Well, a little bit about myself. I am a fun loving person. I enjoy, you know, happy people. And if I see people sad, it's not that I feel like it's my job to make them happy, but I know that I can bring that energy to turn the tides of whatever room I walk into. And I don't know that just because I'm saying that. I know that it's like one of those things where you go somewhere and somebody says, everybody that you talk to say that when you walked in the room, you brought a different energy with you. So I know that I have a just a natural gift in that area without even trying. But I I grew up moving around, and my parents were not in the military. I was born in Florida, lived a little in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and then we moved back to Florida, and then we moved back to military. So I was like, I'm just all over the place. And people always say, "Weren't you raised in the military?" No, I wasn't. My mom was one of those. I think that she just was not satisfied with staying in one place. She just had to move around and go and try something new. And I think when I grew up, I saw that I was doing the same thing, and I realized that what my mom was really trying to do was trying to find her place of belonging, and that she really wasn't accepting who she was. And I get a lot of my talents and gifts from my mom. It's just that, okay, this is my talent, this is my gift. So why am I thinking that that's not a talent or a gift? And whereas my mom, she has the same talent and gift. And now through me and me doing stuff, she said, oh, so that's my calling in life. and and when a lot of times feel like we have a purpose and don't realize that we're doing our purpose is because we haven't accepted who we are or loved ourselves for that, because we feel like it's not enough. And so I grew up always feeling like I was never enough until I started writing my book, which is called Purely Unadulterated Me, Open Me and Read Me. And in that book, as I wrote my journey, I was always angry and frustrated. I think of where it was my kids who brought me to that point of writing this book, where an incident happened. It was a guy fixing my car, and I was just out there yelling at him because he did something that I felt was avoidable, and it frustrated me. So I was being mean, and my kids started crying. It's like, Mom, you just took out of his love bucket. And I'm like, what love bucket are you talking about? I read this book about the love bucket, and whenever you're being nice to people, you're pouring into their love bucket, and it keeps them full and fulfilled. Then you're taking from their love bucket. And I say, he was nice to you and he was pouring into your love bucket by fixing your car. And now you're taking from him, from his love bucket, and that makes you a thief. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
so they're crying. I'm crying because they
It's
just
a good
taught me a lesson.
analogy.
Yes.
Wow.
And so from that day, I was like, I don't want my kids to ever feel the depression that I grew up with because I was depressed and suicidal, in and out of hospital for suicide and depression growing up. And I'm like, I don't ever want them to feel this way. And I don't want them to ever be hurt because I'm taken from somebody's love bucket. So, how do I fix that? So, I go to start writing the book. And the way I started writing it, it was like, I'm going to write everything in my present that is um, triggers me, that frustrates me, or that I'm holding on to that I can't get over. Then I connected all five of my senses. Like, what am I feeling in all five of my senses about this situation or this trigger? And then I try to go and connect it to something in what in my past of my earliest childhood memory can I remember that can that that I immediately connect to. And then I start realizing that situation made me feel like I wasn't good enough, or that situation made me feel like I'm ugly, I'm stupid, or all these negative things, whatever it brought me to. So then I started writing my future in the book, and I said, okay, from here on out, every time this type of situation has to feel this way, I'm going to create this affirmation. This affirmation I'm going to say about myself. When this trigger happens, I affirm that I am loved. I affirm that I am enough. I am good enough in this moment. I am equipped and I am resilient and I'm resourceful. So I start writing those, and then every time those situations happen, it's like I'm doing those affirmations till one day I realized I was no longer suicidal. I was no longer angry at people, or I would respond differently because my perception had changed.
Wow. Everything is about perception, really. Thank you for sharing the story. I mean, since we're talking today about forgiveness and people who are listening to us, they may be interested in knowing, because sometimes it's so difficult to forgive when we are hurt, when people are mean to us, when things were taken from us, when we were betrayed, when we are struggling. It's very difficult. So is there any like process as a forgiveness coach? How do you help people forgive even in these difficult situations?
Well, I pretty much use that same model that I use for myself of I'll have a person sit there, whatever it is that triggers them, or if a situation just happened that day and they are so angry about them and they're about it and they're deeply, you know, want revenge or something. Write down beginning to end as detailed as possible. And in your detailing, write down, oh, my heart was racing and I felt like pin needles breaking through my skin. And it tastes like smell like pine, like those different things. Write down all five senses that you that moment, and then take the moment to just breathe. And then you turn around and your childhood memory, or the closest memory to childhood that you can think of, that has all five of those. It's something that comes up in your adulthood, because it might be something that happened in your adulthood that created that pattern of thinking about the way you have. And then once you get there, then say, why does that, why did the moment make me, whether it's angry, because you have to give it a name. So you have to know what it is that you're addressing. Am I addressing anger? Am I addressing anxiety? Am I addressing fear? And a lot of things is, like if I felt like I was a victim, and a lot of people who feel like they're a victim, they feel like they didn't do enough to take up my fault. Did I do? So you put those down. This is what that situation made me feel. Now, whenever the situation happened, that I did nothing wrong, I am good enough. Like whatever it is, you're gonna write the opposite statement of that, and
Mm-hmm.
that now becomes your something happens, or even when something is about to happen, you pull that out and you read it and you say it doesn't matter if it doesn't feel like it's doing anything at the moment. On making the effort to say it and remind yourself.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing this process with us. And I think many of us could use going through that process. And that's actually a very new and interesting process to me, going back to the childhood and identifying the moment or the thing that triggered and tapping into those feelings. It's really interesting. Uh, there is another thing that you mentioned, which is using affirmations. And I think the three of us here, many people in our audience, are fans of affirmations. And I also have some books that I published with affirmations. I have a set of affirmation cards. So this is a really powerful tool that all of us can tap into and use to transform, to shift the way we're thinking, the way we're perceiving certain things that happen in our life. But there was
Yeah.
something really interesting that Hanan mentioned, and you mentioned before our live in your bio, that really got me thinking. And it is this thing that you're encouraging people to be a promotion and not an emotion. And I was wondering if you can share with us a bit more about what does that mean and where does this come from, because I know you're encouraging people to do that, right? And I think
Yeah.
it is really important for us to understand how we can detach ourselves from
Yes.
your emotions, right?
Yes. So be, and it can be anything. Anybody can fill in the blank. So mine is be a promotion of forgiveness and not the emotion of a traumatic past. So I went through a whole series of trauma, and just that for for me, when I hear other people who are depressed and they've gone through those same things and they haven't gotten over, it's like, oh man, I could have been that, but instead I'm here advocating. And when I always used to hear that, oh, when something happens to you, it's because for somebody else. It's because I'm able to advocate for other people who right now are still feeling stuck. And you know how they have that each one teach one. So I'm not going through what I'm going through just to see you and say, okay, well, I'm out. I don't know why you're struggling. No, that's not what that means. I made it out here. Maybe what I did can help you. I'm willing to be. That's what a life coach is. I'm really here to be walk alongside you, not your therapist or nothing, but I'm here walk alongside you to be your accountability. And one thing that I define, because I used to hate when people say, "Oh, forgive," and it's not about forgiving and forgetting. Or they say, "Oh, forgiveness is for you and not for the other person." I used to be so angry, and it would make me more mad because how nobody won't tell me how. And they say, "Oh, it's just because you don't want to get you don't want to get over it. That's why you're not doing it." No, I just don't know how. And he's telling me how. Well, let me tell you, forgiveness is like this. Let's say this paint on the wall. Paint is on this wall. I have to accept it. It's there because it is there. It's happened. I can't do anything about it. I can't go back and do anything. It's there. So I accept it. But acceptance does not mean approval. So I can approve or disapprove the paint. So if I don't like the paint, or I hire a painter and I change that color. If I approve of it being there, then do nothing. I leave it alone. So a lot of times in our lives, we disapprove of something, but approval signals and consequences. So if somebody's doing something to me, I don't care if it is a family member, because they're the ones who can hurt us to us. If we disapprove of it, we set boundaries. We say, no, I will not allow you to take advantage of me. Or no, you cannot everybody else's car. So no, you cannot use my car. There are these, boundaries. And if you take my car, I'm going to treat you like a stranger. If you take my car, there's these consequences. But we don't put consequences and boundaries with people that we know that are closest to us. And then when they do something that what we feel is our right, then we're mad at them and we're mad at ourselves because we feel like they've taken advantage of us and don't respect us. But the truth is, we've allowed them to take them and set those clear boundaries for them to respect. And then a lot of times we're afraid to set boundaries because, unlike me, people are gonna be mad at me. So what? It's your boundaries, is your right, and we respect each other in this community space. And I would not do something. I love you and I care about you and I'm in your close space. This vice versa. If you respect and love me, you should not do these things. And people, when you feel like people are going to be mad, not that so much as they're going to get used to your boundaries because it's not something they're accustomed with you. Because people were, kind of mad and iffy, but everybody came around and they know that's me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. One thing that interests me and Staluta also is that we hear a lot of stories of, like you, of resilience. I mean, you went through a lot: trauma, child abuse, bullying, addiction, family problems, a lot of things. And we always look at different mechanism of how people overcome these challenges, and this is how we keep also learning about others and also helping others, helping ourselves to overcome our own challenges. I would love to know if you have like a mechanism apart from the bucket, the love bucket, and the story that you shared earlier. Do you have like a mechanism before getting into the forgiveness part, or the forgiveness was your mechanism to overcome these challenges?
Before getting to the forgiveness part, like to the bucket, I really didn't have a mechanism. My whole when I was going through situations, attempt to commit suicide. I was just at a point when I was growing up. My doctors said that I was going to be on medication for the rest of my life, walking around as a zombie because they had me so drugged
Wow.
up that they said there was no for me, no happiness, hope, because I was at the deepest depression that they couldn't even counsel me out of. And so for me, it was really pretty much just my kids. The whole, like I said, that whole perception change. And in my head, I didn't know that I was doing affirmations at the time because I hated affirmations. I felt like, oh, these affirmations don't work. I didn't do anything. In fact, I'm still extra angry. In fact, I don't even feel like saying them. So, but I had other affirmations that I didn't realize that I was subconsciously doing, which was each day was like, I'm going to live for my kids. I'm going to make sure my kids never be this type of sad. I'm going to do for my kid done for me. I'm going to advocate for them because nobody advocate for me. And when I started actually living that life according to that without realizing those were affirmations and it was changing my perception, at the time it started out for my kids. So by the time it gets to my kids telling me about the love bucket, it made an effect on me because I was already living my life for my kids to make sure that they never feel what I feel. And so now when they're feeling this hurt because of something that I did, I realized that I'm giving them the hurt and I'm making this happen. That has an effect on me to different affirmation. And as a time, I was doing the affirmation that I didn't even realize I was doing.
Yeah, because the most challenging thing about the affirmation is that the confusion between the conscious and the subconscious. People, they say things, but they don't believe in them, and they don't maintain that process until they get what they want and they give up. So yeah,
Yeah.
it really requires a lot of persistence, consistency, repetition, a lot of belief that things will change, and this is something challenging to many people.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for you because you mentioned that you realized from time to time that despite the fact that you were, your kids were the ones who somehow were at the forefront of your transformation and the motivation for you going through the transformation. And yet sometimes you realize that you did things that had a negative impact on them. And I think all parents do that, right? If we have enough awareness, we can see when, which are our own behaviors that affect in a negative way our kids. And when we realize that, at least that's what happens to me, I have a tendency to judge myself, to feel guilty, to feel shame, to it's like, I didn't know. I- It takes me quite a while to be able to forgive myself. And I was wondering if you have a specific process of forgiving yourself, because sometimes I find that is way easier, though it's not easy at all, but it is for me easier to forgive other people than it is to forgive myself. So can you speak about self-forgiveness also, if you have a process or if you have something that can help people also transition these moments in which you feel guilty and ashamed and about your own behavior?
Yeah, I believe, Steluta, if we
Yes.
don't do the process of self forgiveness, we cannot forgive others. The people who maybe who manage to forgive themselves will be able to forgive others easily. And I don't know if it's right for everyone. This is just my perspective. Maybe Elona can say something about it.
Yeah, it was like I said, kids. One time, like my kids, they would say their nightly prayers before going to bed, and then I would have this little ending that I would put on, and I would say, "Okay, well, God, also, if my kids let me go to hell for them because they deserve to be in heaven, you know." And then one night, my kids prayed and said, "God, don't let any of us go to hell. Let our mom go to heaven too," you know. And so they're like, "Mom, we don't want you to go to hell. You can go to heaven too." And I said, "So stop. Can you stop praying that because it makes us sad and it makes us scared? You rather go to hell with." So it was like I started saying to myself, like, why am I condemning myself to hell because of my upbringing? It was always hellfire and brimstone. That I didn't think that I was entitled to go to hell at this point. That I was just unforgivable. Everything that I was has done going to be good enough, and so I had to start doing that same self affirmation of when I would pray with them, I would say that, and me too. Put in a good word for me, and it just started like just you start to subconsciously change, and you don't even realize, and you start to accept these things of I am good enough, even if I make a mistake, and then I when I started, because I would teach my kids, don't see failure as failure. See failure a small win, and that's another notch on your belt. Another notch of how do wise people become wise? They don't become wise because they never failed. It's because they accepted that failure and they use that failure as a stepping stone. So if you use it as a stepping stone in a learning experience, then there's nothing to feel ashamed about or bad about. It's something to be proud of. It's like a little gold star award. Start seeing those things as, oh, I got another gold star. So
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a really interesting visual. And I think if we could keep that visual with us, and every time we manage to do something like that, visualize that and trigger the dopamine in our system, it would be easier for us to keep on doing that.
and you
Well, I'll keep the golden star to mind.
and like saying that and you say that actually kind of gave me an idea. Maybe I should start a gold star chart. Like every time something happens, and then write experience was. And so, okay, I learned this today, and then put a gold star down there beside it. And then you just see this whole gold star of experiences. And you're not writing as a failure. Oh, today I failed at such and such. Oh, today I learned drive over big puddles and not flood my engine. you know, gold star.
Yeah. After many interviews so far and after listening to many stories like yours, we started to see a pattern of people who struggled in the past and how they use that pain, that struggle, that challenge into something meaningful, something big, something that inspires them every day and give them sense of purpose. And I can see that in your story. What you experienced in the past and what you are trying and the vision you are embracing today of uniting communities and removing labels. Can you tell us what's your approach and how uh, what's the process? Well, we talked a lot about the process today. How will you? So, what's your vision? Can you tell us more about it?
Okay, so like you mentioned earlier that I for Washington State governor in 2024. Well, in the meantime, my whole thing is to take that United Communities and Removing Label of is I've been hosting events, and in the events, I knowingly bring people from different sides. And Democrat, I have them in the room. If it's Proud Boys and social justice, I have them in the room. But I tell people, don't talk about what your personal belief is when you come in here. Don't talk about your political party. I want to come in. We're just going to discuss issues. And when we sit there and we discuss issues, everybody's sitting there and agreeing. And it's funny because then you'll see you might have some Republicans agreeing with this group of Democrats and this group. There's some who this group over here, and then we all get to see that we're all just human. We all have the same issues. We're all faced with the same things out here that affects us, whether it's taxes, homelessness, um, mental health. Those affect us. Those affect us despite what our religious beliefs it affects us all. We can all relate to that equally. So why can't we just focus on the issue and stop worrying about what somebody's personal right to their own choices are? So can we focus on that? So the more because people aren't going to just naturally do it on their own or go up and say, "Oh, well, I just want to debunk this fear or this hatred I have towards you because based on social media, based on what I was raised on to believe about you." Do that. But we bring them in the room and tell them put aside these other things. Don't even bring it up or mention it. Let's talk about this. Then once people start to become comfortable with each other and have that's a safe space, then they come to realize that whatever stereotype they had of the other person does not even matter. So that's pretty much the my strategy
That's
right
great.
now.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. Steluta, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I was just wondering because we are at the top of our time, if you can share any last advice with our audience in regards to forgiveness, because forgiveness and resilience, because our show is mostly about resilience and forgiveness. I think it's one of the we can all agree on that. It's one of the tools to become resilient, right, and keep moving, forgiving, and keep moving forward. If you can share one last piece of advice with our audience in regards to whatever topic you feel it's worth advising people on.
Yes. What stuck in don't stop. Like if today you feel depressed or frustrated or feel hopeless or you feel like I have so much on my plate or I have this my life is over, it's not over. So don't life each day as if that situation didn't happen. And if it's things that you feel like you don't have enough time in the day to accomplish, or you can't even, it looks impossible, something that you know that is positive and that's possible, and make that happen. And if it's something that needs to be dealt with, then there, even if it doesn't come out all the way that you want it to, you next time something like that happens, you're going to be that much farther ahead, as opposed to if you stopped and didn't make efforts and didn't learn something along the way.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here, sharing your story of resilience and all your words of wisdom. Thank you to our audience. Thank you, Saluta.
Thank you. Just before we go, where can people connect with you?
Yes, they can connect me. My email is my name, Elona, Elona, Kearney, Kearney at. I also have a love always, and you'll see a picture up there, picture up there of me. So those are the best. Those are the best with me. And I also have my governor's page, which is if you're in Washington State, it's peoplebeforeparty.com.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week. And then join us on YouTube also, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Hanan.
Thank you.